Each of the Beatles albums, according to George Harrison, had its high points. Nevertheless, he had some unkind comments to say about a handful of the Fab Four's albums. John Lennon, however, claimed that as time passed, he grew to appreciate some of the band's albums more. In an interview from 1977, George Harrison was asked which Beatles albums did he listen to again. "I liked when we got into Rubber Soul, Revolver. Each album had something good about it and progressed," George said. Not every Beatles record was a favorite of George Harrison's. "There were albums which weren't any good as far as I was concerned, like Yellow Submarine," Harrison said. "We put all the songs together into an album form. I'm talking about the English albums now, because the States we found later that for every 2 albums we had, they'd made 3 because we put 14 tracks on an album, and we'd also have singles that weren't included on albums in those days. They'd put the singles, take off a bunch of tracks, change all the running order, and then they'd make new packages like Yesterday and Today, just awful packages." The Beatles' early records, according to George Harrison, had awful stereo. He spoke on the Beatles' early work's technical aspects during the same interview. "Those old records weren't really stereo," he commented. "They were mono records and they were re-channeled. Some of the stereo is terrible because you've got the backing on one side. In fact, when we did the first 2 albums, at least the first album, which was Please Please Me, we did straight onto a 2-track machine." At least in retrospect, George Harrison had harsher opinions of a few of the Beatles' albums than John Lennon did. With time, John Lennon's opinion of the Fab Four's debut albums improved. An interview from 1969 is published in the book Lennon on Lennon, Conversations with John Lennon. John also revealed his opinions of the Beatles' albums in that interview. He claimed that the group used to create albums, listen to them, and then put them aside. Prior to the White Album, he said he would listen to every record in the band's discography in chronological sequence, but it would take a lot of time. John claimed that the early work of the Fab Four used to make him feel embarrassed. He no longer experienced such embarrassment at that point. John believed that every album the band released was worthwhile, and he had no regrets about any of them. He loved all of the band's work because it represented the band at various moments in time, even though he had a preference for some songs over others.
Hello.
That was Ringo, folks.
Well, what can I say?
And goodbye
You
to all of
know.
us.
Well, this is Ringo. Everyone seems to have said everything here, so I'll just sign off by saying cheerio and best of luck from the Beatles.